Hey guys, greetings, Merry Christmas. Welcome to Tall Tales with Taco. This is an end of the year recap. I'm sitting here with Ray Charles. If you guys can see, this is one of our special needs cats that was in the Texas rescue my wife runs. That Ray Charles is blind, so he's very good at jumping on things and not being able to get down. But he was meowing so loud, my daughter brought him home from college that I had to include him into the show. Otherwise, he would sit outside my door and sit there and howl. Guys, I just wanted to go over this past year. It's, as you know, if you've been following the show for any time at all, I just enjoy shooting shit with people. I'm an aviator, and that's my job, right? Talk a lot. You could always tell a pilot. How can you tell that the guy's a pilot? Because he'll tell you and talks a lot. So, kind of fun. As we're sitting here going through the year and the recap, I'm blown away because while I have some friends, Ward Carroll and some of these other guys that have aviation podcasts, these guys have gone into the stratosphere. I mean, not Joe Rogan, but they're getting up there and they actually make a great living doing a podcast. I always kind of felt like this is just a hobby. I don't even charge um, ads on Facebook anymore. I tried when I originally got on. I thought, oh, hey, it'll buy me a new headset. But I make enough money in my job that this is straight up. I don't want to have to deal with it. And also, if I felt like this was a job and I had to create content and I had to make shorts and I had to do this, God, it wouldn't be fun anymore. I mean, not in my mind. I mean, it'd make a lot of money, but it's not worth it. So the very small audience that I have and everybody who watches, I just want to say thank you. You guys have made my day every time I see a new subscriber, and we're up to about 2,050 subscribers on YouTube. And the reason I don't monetize on YouTube is because you never know what the content's going to be on my show. And what really frustrated me was if it had to do with Iraq, Afghanistan, Marine Corps, war, and the bots heard anything like COVID, um, they would say limited monetization on your channel for this episode. And yet they would still show ads, which kind of it, it made me angry. So I thought, you know what? You don't have to skip through anything if you go back and watch an old episode because I turned everything off. There's no monetization at all. But for a recap of 2023, I had over 75,000 views and over 308,000 views for the lifetime of the channel, which kind of impressive to me. You guys have watched over 7,700 hours of videos. And over the lifetime of my channel, 26,000 hours of watch time. I don't know how that compares to a lot of other podcasters out there, but it makes me feel good that, I can sit there and say, 26,000 hours of watch time. I don't know. It's kind of cool. Makes me feel good. The top videos, the PBY by far. Thank you, Coy. When he flew the PBY from France over to back to Eugene, Oregon. Boy, I tell you what, that was probably one of my biggest regrets was not calling in sick and trying to get on that PBY for just one of the legs because it was incredible. That video has garnered over 30,000 views in the last year, which is just beyond. It's a very short video, so if you haven't seen it, go onto the YouTube channel, go into videos, and you'll see PBY. It's white. It's beautiful. He put great music to it, and there's no commercials. Just shows it flying all the way from France across Iceland and landing all these different places, coming in. So fantastic. You ought to watch that. Dave Holland. That was a few years ago. His episode was 84. Just in the last year, that has received over 7,000 views. And if you guys don't know Dave, he does the walking tours of Guadalcanal. Former Marine who got out and married a local girl down there in Australia. And so he hangs down there and he goes over to Guadalcanal all the time. He's a police officer. Um, Fantastic stuff. And if you go to his YouTube channel, you can click and subscribe on that and get all sorts of updates of actual footage of him walking through the battle lines where all the battles in Guadalcanal, Alligator Creek, and all that stuff. So Barcelone's positions. I mean, he knows where the actual fighting positions were. It's fantastic stuff. So highly recommend him. That's been very popular. Don Graves, who's a local World War II Iwo Jima Marine right down the street. Don, I put something up with Don and God, I got 4,000 views. So kind of cool. Good for Don because, he gets a lot. He's a very famous vet within our community. And there are a lot of people who bring Don to all sorts of different events. And if you haven't seen the Sean Ryan show, Sean Ryan's a Navy SEAL who has just a fantastic podcast. My idols that I listen to, Sean Ryan, and I listen to Joe Rogan. I just love Joe Rogan. But Sean Ryan and had Don Graves on. You've got to watch that show. It's incredible. Talks about all of his experiences from World War II. You can get it all. And the fact that he had Don on there is just fantastic. For all of you aviators out there, helicopter guys especially, Robert Mason's Chicken Hawk interview had 3,000 views this year. That's just this year. I pulled up this numbers for this year. His video was one of the first I did, thanks to Julie Chung. That introduction and that interview was he's one of my idols. So if you have a chance to go back and watch Robert and his wife, Patience, I like that interview a lot. That was a lot of fun. This year, probably October, the beginning of October, I flew up to Washington, D.C. It was a guest speaker for the Daughters of American Revolution. They had a big meeting. They asked me to be a speaker. And so I went up there to go talk to the ladies, which was a fantastic time. Highly recommend if anybody is interested in the Daughters of American Revolution or they have kids and you want to be the sons of the American Revolution, you can do that as well. While I was up there, I went to go see Heater Heatley. And Heater, as you know, has been suffering from cancer. I asked him about this experimental treatment, and he got dropped a bombshell that he had to pay $90,000 to be able to enter this specialized treatment. Just a bombshell for a guy that has been put on pretty much a death sentence at, when you think about, hey, you're at this stage, this is what you have, this is how much longer you have. You'll pretty much do anything you can to stay alive. I said, Heater, you're such an incredible guy. He is the most humble individual you would ever meet, and he has taken over the Save Heater. He literally he writes every single person who makes a donation. He has access to, so he goes in there and he writes a note for him. Excuse me. So if you haven't seen that, Heater, we've raised over almost $81,000 and we set the goal at 90,000. So $81,000 for Heater, which is incredible. Boy, that podcast with him, I did two podcasts with him at the end of the year. Episode 141 with Heater, and that one's had over 3,000 views, so X amount of hours watching Heater stuff. Go watch as much as you can of Heater on different venues. He's all over the place. Fighter Pilot Podcast, things like that. You really, really like Heater stuff. And if you haven't contributed, I don't care if you give $5. If you want to help out, it's for a good cause. And for those who don't know who I'm talking about, Heater Heatley created the cutting edge back in the 80s. And this was the genesis of the movie Top Gun because they saw this photo and inspired the producers to create that movie. So if you have any affiliation or affinity with that, that's why we're helping Heater out. I mean, I attribute Heater to my job progress and career. I would not be where I am now as a commercial airline pilot had it not been for Heater, and then I went into the Marines because I wanted to be a pilot. Just fantastic guy too. So check him out. The Top Gun podcast that I did years ago, that one is still, I guess, like 1.2 thousand views, which was pretty cool. This year, we did over 41 different shows, and it was a blast. I had Tim Costley on, who is now an MP. That's the same as a congressman down there in New Zealand. Tim Costley wrote that song Jet Pilot, and it is just a spoof on all fighter guys, which as a C-130 dude makes me laugh, and I love it. If you get a chance, he was one of the latest. Watch that; it's a pretty funny video. His video on YouTube is still garners millions and millions of views. So fantastic guy. I really enjoyed the talk with him. Bing West was on with all his fellow CAP CAP, or they call them CAP Marines. Wayne Hickman is a local neighbor of mine. Wayne, Merry Christmas. Thank you. You and Donna for taking care of my parents. Wayne was part of CAP, and these guys were like the modern day CAGs, Civilian Affairs Group. Only they lived with the Vietnamese in their villages. So that was a fantastic interview, and that's done really well. I really appreciate all those guys coming on. Although I felt like I cheated the viewers on that podcast only because there were so many of them. I could only get a couple stories out at a time. What I need to do is break it back down this year and get individuals on to have a longer discussion. Um, 2 minutes is not enough for each guy to talk, especially with some of the vignettes that they had. Stolen Valor with Dave Harden, that was a very popular one. And Ferg Ferguson, a buddy of mine, he was the advisor for the new Top Gun Maverick. He's an F-18 Navy pilot, flies for an airline. Just an incredible, incredible guy. He came on and sat and talked, and that's a very popular episode that I have. Enjoy Ferg a lot. So if you get a chance, check out Ferg's episode as well. So far, we've talked about tanks, snipers, interview with the first POW that was ever in Vietnam. Medal of Honor recipients this year. I had David Bellavia and Bob Patterson. Let's see, Scout Snipers, Mike Bennett, Special Forces. I had Chris, who flew Sophia, the Special 747. That was really cool. Had my buddy Randy Norfleet and my son's teacher, Doug Hanning, who Randy survived the Oklahoma City bombing back when Timothy McVeigh blew that place up. And Doug, a young college student who happened to be in the Marine Reserves, ran over there to just volunteer and see what he could do, which he did an incredible job getting in there, and they were retrieving remains. That's neat. And that interview led to, I think it's History Channel, or one of those. They did a special interview with Randy, and they brought Doug in because nobody's ever talked to one of the rescuers. And Doug was a young, like I said, 19-year-old college student who threw his uniform on, threw his pack on, grabbed his sergeant, and they took off racing in his Jeep to get to Oklahoma City and got right through all the barricades because we're part of the Marine Rescue Unit, which they weren't, but he just felt the urge to run into the fire and do something. And so very proud of that guy. And that special will be coming out. I'll definitely have them on later when that shows up. We had one of my first one, Jim Folkering. We had a World War II P-51 pilot who got shot down. That was a neat interview. Unfortunately, those guys are dying at the cyclic rate. So if you know some World War II guys that are still, there physically, they may not be, but mentally they're sharp as a tack, and you think that they would be a good fit, and somebody would be able to go help them with the AV. I would love to interview them because once they're gone, those stories are gone. The Vietnam vets, they're all in their 80s, and Korean vets, they're in their 90s. World War II vets are like 100. So 98 to 102 if they're still with us. So very important to document and capture those stories that those guys have, because once they're gone, those stories are gone. Um, I can say that next year I'm looking forward to actually we're attending the 80th anniversary of D-Day, so we're going to be over in France. I'll be podcasting from there and interviewing different people and whatnot. That'll be a blast. That'll be in June, of course. I have a lineup with all sorts of incredible, talented people that weren't able to make the podcast up to this point, and they're on the docket for January. Brian, you are definitely in there. There's a lot of folks that I want to talk to. Let's see, get to this. And I've got Jacob. There we go. Jacob, thank you so much, man. Jacob Cobb, Marine. He had the special car, the Continental, that they restored. It was a beautiful job. It was all Marine squadrons. A lot of the fighter pilot guys, they all had a squadron car, and ours was the Chrysler with the suicide doors. And so, very cool. Jacob, thank you so much, man. Doug, hey, you are on here. Doug, listen, man, thank you so much for taking care of all the kids at the high school like you do. You're an inspiration and, a huge part of their lives. It's guys like you that, help develop our future. Truly, I am very appreciative. Uh, Jerry, how are you? Merry Christmas to you. And he's an old neighbor of mine, great guy, a lot of fun. Caleb, Merry Christmas to you. Javier, I got you as well. Merry Christmas. Kevin Brown. Kevin Brown. All right. When I used to fly international in the 777, 76, 777, 78, I would go over to London. This guy owns a ferret, Mark One, done up in desert colors because Delilah was in the first Gulf War. Kevin picked me up at the hotel one time with Keith Banfield, and we had the I don't have a picture of his particular ferret, but imagine this is my ferret, my Mark One too. Imagine the turret being gone, and then there's just a machine gun that's up there. And we were driving around London, all over London, day and night in that thing. It was the most fun I've ever had. And Keith and I were up in the squeezed together up in the top, and we had the headset on. And Kevin has given us like a cabbie tour of London, telling us, pointing out this, pointing out that, telling us all the facts and everything about the different places that we're going to. Incredible, a lot of fun. Hey, Miss Clayton, how are you? This is old neighbors up in DC. Certainly do appreciate them and their daughter Stephanie at UVA when my sister went through there. A lot of fun. Darlene, how are you? Merry Christmas. Hey, listen, you and your husband, I wish you guys a great year next year. We won't have the Top Gun days next year, but stay in touch and we'll see if we can get everybody together. That would be a lot of fun. Ray, Merry Christmas to you, man. Thank you so much for being on the comment section here. Alden, hey, Merry Christmas and look forward to seeing you commenting down the road and getting on here. Hey, many blessings to you too as well. I appreciate you. Um, you coming on here and checking us out. Roy, same to you. Jim McNeely, he's another ferret guy. A lot of fun. Kathleen, Merry Christmas. Blessed New Year, guys. Will Grant. See, you got to be careful when you make a comment because all of a sudden your name brings up stories. Will Grant was CEO of an Osprey squadron, and my young protege, MJ Harris, who I watched graduate from TCU, we commissioned. Um, did I commission MJ? I think I did. MJ, you'll have to answer that because I know I did Logan. But anyway, MJ was on float over in the Pacific somewhere, and I'm emailing him, and I said, "Hey, you ought to get your squadron to bring some Ospreys out to Skyball, which is the big veterans event that we had in October, November time frame every year here at DFW." And he goes, you'd have to ask my CO. He I'm like, "No, you go ask him." He goes, "No, sir, you'd have to write my CO." So I said, "All right, give me his address." So he gave me his email, and I started emailing Will. And Willie was out there floating around, and I guess he was bored because we started exchanging emails. And then next thing you know, it was, "Hey, you ever think about going to the airlines?" And Willie's kind of like, well, actually, yeah, but he can't tell anybody. So we had this little secret relationship. Brought him out to Skyball, brought a couple Ospreys. It was a blast. And now he is an Airbus pilot. Don't hold it against him. Based out of LA. Incredible guy. So, hey, Will, great seeing you on here. Ron Catlin, probably one of the best amateur photographers I've seen in a long time, and also a guy with a giant heart. Ron goes around and helps the Young Marine program, does a lot of stuff, transits with these kids down to Corpus Christi, and I love seeing him on here. I actually had him on the show too. Jim Snyder. Hey, Merry Christmas, Jim. Um, I don't have any good stories about you at Christmas, but we'll have to try it. Jim. Now, oh, Jim Wedge, because he's the simplest tool known to man. Jim is at the airport, gate change, 2 maintenance delays, told the captain to come to the 737, get away from French incompetence. Wedge, you're absolutely right. Let me tell you a story about this guy. In 2003, I transitioned over to the Mad Dog, the Super 80. And the Super 80, we called that Super Slug. It was like a 57 Chevy. I mean, McDonnell Douglas, when they built it, had a slide rule. And he goes, "Hey, what do you got? I got, you know, 13 7/8. What do you have? I have 13 and a quarter. All right, we'll mash it together." I mean, that's how the Super 80 was, a tough old airplane. But Jim was my instructor, and basically, oh, let me get rid of that picture. um, Jim was my instructor, and we got sent up to St. Louis. So we were training up at the old TWA facility in St. Louis. And my partner, Carl Battis, was the director of flight for LAX. So he was always on his phone. He would always get these alerts and he would roll his eyes. It was something happening or whatever. As chief pilots do, they get a lot of notices. Well, we were just intercepting the ILS. I was coming in, I was flying the airplane. We hit the ILS and I heard glide slope intercept and we're coming down. And right as we're coming down, there was this big giant thunderstorm right over the facility. And we heard the kaboom and it blew some transformer somewhere. And next thing you know, the sim just basically crashed nose down in the sim bay. And so we happened to have our harnesses on. Poor Wedge did not. And next thing I know, Wedge is in between us on the instrument panels. He got all messed up. So Wedge, appreciate your constant service, taking care of our folks, and especially the new pilots as you're training them coming up on the 737. Oh, look at that. Yeah, still got the email. Yeah, you do, man. You ought to print that out, man. I'll tell you what, that's kind of cool. Um, what I also want to ask, if you guys are actually still watching this, um, do you have somebody that you think would be an awesome interview? You know, it's always, I think the best interviews are the ones that are not, you're not going for, I'm not going for, I want to have this movie star on, blah, blah, blah. I want the average guy. I want the guy with a good conversation. If you've got somebody who's got some great war stories, some funny vignettes, so there I was. Please send me an email. I put my email address on there. It's free to pass around. Mitchell.taco.bell and um, at gmail.com. You go ahead and you put that on there and you can send me try to hook me up with their contact information. Just don't tell me, oh, there's this guy. If you have their contact information, email me. I'll get in touch with them. And then hopefully we can bring them on the show. I like to do the shows live at Tuesday. And if I can't, then I tape it if we have an issue with their schedule. And then I'll throw it on the internet. Let's see, what else? Anything I can do better? As an instructor, I always ask, is there anything I can do better? probably say a lot of ands and ums. I can work on that. But if you have anything that I can do better, my son tells me that the back of my stuff is a mess. And I agree, it is kind of a mess, but it's kind of cool. If you're looking over here, I kind of have more models that you can't see off camera, some old squadron plaques and different things. Over this shoulder, I've got the Golden Taco Award, which means the most to me out of everything I've ever done. As a matter of fact, I had a Army aviator on Christmas morning doing a check ride, and we're sitting there talking, and he was the commanding officer of one of the dust off or medevac units. And it's so funny because of a group of warrant officers. So this week I ran into Nick Alford. Nick Alford is the guy that back in 2013, if you can see the propellers up behind me, right up there, well, it's hard to see it, but there's a propeller right over my shoulder. That was a propeller off a UAV. So I'm going back so you can get the full picture. That I took that propeller with a guy named Tim Rayner, who his call sign Shine, Rain or Shine. Rayner was a F-18 Marine F-18 guy, worked veterans initiatives, and so he called me up one night and one day and said, "Hey, can you attend this Apollo dinner that we're having over at Frontiers of Flight and be my guest? Put your uniform on and come over." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, man, I'd love to." And I took the propellers and I took two of them, and I had all the Apollo guys that were there: Fred Hayes, Jim Lovell, Gene Cicerin, Stafford. All those guys signed my prop. And then I was sitting at dinner with a guy who Fred Cleveland was the COO of Eagle Airlines. And at the time, I was mentoring a CH-46 pilot from Iraq who made a transition to C-130s. Long story short, guys kind of always look down on helicopter pilots. Uh, you know, 13% go, or would they used to break it out like 11% of flight students in the Marine Corps get C-130s. 30% go jets, and the rest go helos. And so they always kind of, look down on helo guys. And I've flown a helo. It's the most fun I've ever had. And B, it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. So hats off to every helo driver out there because it is bitching and kick ass. But sitting there with Fred, and I'm telling him, hey, I'm mentoring this CH-46 pilot from Iraq who was at my base, and I made friends with him. He ended up going to become President Obama's HMX-1 personal pilot. Well, not personal, but he was one of the pilots that flew the president around. I go, you can't tell me that you got a guy that's getting shot at in Iraq and he ends up, flying the president around. This is the best of the best, that we can't teach him to fly one of your small jets. And, and then from there, he can go to, the airlines. And he goes, you're absolutely right. Do you have a business card? Rule number one, always have a business card. So I gave him my card. Monday morning, I got a call from the head of pilot recruitment. It says, sir, this is kind of strange, but I got a email from the COO of my company saying I needed to contact you about this lost opportunity and untapped reservoir of aviators. And so when I explained to him, all of these helicopter pilots are instrument rated, NATOPS instrument, they, get shot at constantly, and they're able to make snap decisions, and you can teach them to fly your jets. You got a big pool of pilots right there. And at that time, I think most helicopter pilots were kind of stuck doing EMS services, which was very competitive to get on. You have to have like 4,000 hours, or they were flying helicopters over the Gulf of Mexico or out to oil rigs somewhere. So it was kind of limited what the guys could do unless they became a flight instructor, built up their turbine multi-engine hours or single engine turbine hours, and they got hired that way. Well, because of that, Nick Alford was the assistant. Nick and I spent about 6 hours on the phone. He built the initial RTP program over a 6 hour phone call, and we talked about everything. And then John, he got hired at United, so he left. And John Railback, who was a Navy UE pilot, took over, and he built that program, got the schools, got everything, and guys were able to go take and get all their single engine time, get their requisite multi-engine time, and use their VA benefits for it, and then go to the regionals, and then from the regionals over to the airlines. So what started out as a very narrow onesies and twosies, it is now a, it's not uncommon type thing to see a guy who basically started out as helicopters and rotors and then moved over to the airline. So that was kind of a fascinating deal. And this week um, I saw him, Nick, and he's a captain on the 737 now, and he had another RTP helicopter guy with him. And then my student on Christmas Day was a Army helicopter pilot who got his fixed wing time and then went to one of the regionals, and then from the regionals over to American. So it's a very, very big success story. And I have an episode on that with Eric Sabiston, who, God love him, he is a guy that wrote Dust Off 7.3, medevac pilot, incredible individual. And if you get the chance to read the book, it's called Dust Off 7.3. As a matter of fact, because of him, we had the RTP program, fledgling program going because of him, and then a handful of other warrant officers he got home with and got together, and they built RTAG, and that was originally Rotor to Airline Group. Jim, Tim, and um, oh God, I'm so sorry. Having a so Josh, Jim, Tim, Edmund, PJ, all those guys, Lindsay. There's so many people. They got together and they built this RTAG program, which is now the standard. It's an aviation charity that takes any military helicopter pilot wants to be fixed wing, helps them. If you are an enlisted person, I don't care if you're an admin guy, but you always said, "Hey, I wanted to be a pilot." Well, we have the E2A, which is enlisted to aviator, and then put them through all their training. And within 5 years, guys, literally from day one, 5 years later, you can be flying at a major airline, United, American, FedEx, whoever, Delta. So it's kind of a really neat deal. And to all my fellow R-taggers out there, you guys keep grinding. You're doing an awesome job. I'm so damn proud of you and what you guys are doing for everyone here. Um, oh, Doug Sellers. Ha Doug, how are you, brother? Doug lives not too far from me and was one of the major volunteer support for Top Gun Days, which was an event we held out in San Diego. That was just friggin' awesome. Reggie Campbell, hey, Merry Christmas to you, Reggie. And Peggy Kane. Um, do I ever do the Snowball Express out of LA? Peggy, one of my supporters from Iraq back in the day. No, I did not do Snowball Express out of LA. They do routes. I did Snowball Express. It was a long time ago. I was flying the 757 when I did Snowball. But I want to say I did Phoenix to Dallas was my leg, and then I flew back as well after Snowball ended. For those that don't know, Snowball, American Airlines does a lot of great stuff, and some of the veterans initiatives and stuff that we do never gets touted out there. Snowball Express started by taking all the children of our fallen. So you imagine back in 2005, 2006, there were a lot of families whose the dad was killed in war, over in the war, whether it be Iraq or Afghanistan, and the children, celebrated that Christmas without dad. Well, we started Snowball. We did not start it. We volunteer. All the pilots volunteer for free. Ground guys volunteer to work for free. Flight attendants, everybody volunteers. I believe, and I'll get this wrong, I'm sure, Exxon or somebody donates the fuel. So the airline donates the airplane. The fuel is taken care of. The crew and all the members are taken care of. And then we would fly all the kids from different sections around the US where they, could get onto the airplane. And we would fly them to Dallas. And then at Dallas, they would have this big giant parade down Main Street in the stockyards in Fort Worth. And the kids would be out there and everybody, I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of people lining the streets and cheering all the families on. And it was kind of an eye opener for my daughter because I had just, I think in 8, I had just gotten back from Afghanistan, and my daughter was pretty young. Um, Susan leaned over and said, "That's not fair. I want to be out there with them." And I looked at her and I said, "Honey, you don't. They're out there because their dad died in the war. I made it home. You have me. They don't have a dad." And my daughter looked at me and she just lost it. And she runs out into the street. And there was a little blondie girl about her age. And she goes up and gives her the biggest hug. And she's crying. And then my wife runs out there and the moms, they're all hugging and crying. I mean, it's a very emotional thing. Um, we take the kids and they would put them up in a hotel in Dallas, volunteered to set up ping pong tables and things like that. This grew to a giant event with Gary Sinise Foundation joining the program. Just a spectacular, well done thing for taking care of our families of the fallen. It has eventually outgrown Dallas, and now it's down in Orlando every year, and they go to Disney World. And Gary Sinise still supports it, flies out there with the kids. Just fantastic guy. Aside from his work, his body of work, which while good, Forrest Gump and all that, I would say Gary Sinise's work with veterans and the amount of time that he volunteers puts him in the stratosphere of just the average person that I worship. And I don't worship many people. That guy takes care of so many veteran related issues, just like Um, Chef Irvine. He spends so much time with our troops. Incredible. I can't say enough good things about them. And now they fly down. We also would do Skyball, which would raise money for veterans initiative, different veteran groups and different things like that. I mean, raise hundreds of thousands, $1 million, whatever. I mean, it was a hell of a deal. A lot of Medal of Honor recipients would come to Dallas Fort Worth. That was a blast. I really miss that. But I gave about 16 years of my life to that, and that was about enough. Um, and then, of course, COVID killed that. But Snowball Express is still going on. Salute to the troops. We would take wounded troops from Walter Reed and also San Antonio, and we fly them out to Vegas for just an incredible 4 or 5 days. The Sheldons would put us up in their hotels. We stayed in the top floors of all these major hotels. You would go out there and they would see the Blue Man Group, and they would just all these different pre-planned events. And these guys are wounded, and they're going through all this stuff. And I was a healthy guy, and I'm like, I am whipped every day. I just go to my room with my roommate and crash out and just be like, dude, I'm going to bed. I'm so tired. I don't know how they did it, but that was really, really cool. And of course, then if you've ever been part of a Soaring Valor, where we take the veterans back to DC to see the World War II, that's another deal. Randy Stillinger took over from Jim Palmershine, and Randy runs great programs getting getting all these folks together. So if you get a chance, check out some of that stuff. We also do Medal of Honor trips, and we fly them from New York down to DC. They have a big event for the Medal of Honor recipients at the airport. So if you happen to be there that day, that's kind of cool to check out. Um, oh man, let's see. Merry Christmas to you, Taco, and your family, from myself and 33BA01 Mark 1 Ferret. John Wilkinson's one of my Brit friends as well. I have friends all over the world through my Armored Scout Car Association, which is a blast. Always love these guys. Mindy, oh my God. Mindy is, we have a local Marine Corps group called the Marine Metroplex, and we get together once a month for lunch at place TXO over in Dallas, and we have anywhere between, I don't know, 65 to 100 Marines who show up, and we used to have it from World War II all the way to present. And I think the oldest one we have left is Lieutenant General Carey. But Mindy is one of our, go-to folks that if you need help with something, VA or whatever, Mindy is our person. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do a show with Mindy because I got a phone call. Hey, could you help this Marine? His wife was a Marine. She died in a car crash. I mean, this is the ex-husband who's trying to get a hold of me. His wife, they were married and they got divorced. She got remarried, and her new husband died in a head-on car crash. Somebody swerved into their lane, and they passed. Um, so we're trying to figure out how to do the 21 gun, not 21 gun salute, but the service salute with rifles and stuff like that. So I'm going to do a podcast with her because that came up, and then somebody else died, and they were out in Phoenix, and I got a phone call from this general. Hey, Taco, could you help me? I said, yes, sir, no problem. Let's see what we can find out to try to transfer human remains from Phoenix back to North Carolina, and if we could get that done. So anyway, that is a future podcast that I'm going to have with Mindy. Thank you so much, Mindy, for everything you do. God bless you. You are a godsend to all of us. Thank you. Larry, hey, Larry is one of our guys from Skyball, and that's awesome seeing him on there. I got 11 you guys. So do me a favor, you folks out there, if you're still watching this, it's been 42 minutes. Send me a message. You got my email, mitchell.taco.bell@gmail.com. Send me a message. Let me know if you got somebody you want me to try to interview and see if they're a good fit. I can shoot the bull with them. And if you've got anything that I can do better, if I need to clean up my mess back behind me, let me know. And then I do this stuff. Oh, here we go. This is awesome. Scott Gibson, Merry Christmas to you and your family, Taco. May see you at Al's birthday. Al Chadwin is a friend of ours. I mean, my wife has known Al and his family since she was a kid. Scott Gibson was my very first interview on when I attempted. Scott, I'm so sorry about that too. The very first interview I ever did when I started this, I interviewed a couple World War II vets on VJ Day, and that's how I started Tall Tales because Facebook Live had just come out. I thought, well, that's kind of neat. You can go Facebook Live. So I did Facebook Live with a video, and it was me sitting at the counter with a phone, and I am doing just talking to the guys, not so much an interview, but just shooting the bull with these World War II survivors. I had an Iwo Jima Marine, and I think I had Carmen Giese, who's since passed. Um, he was a 506. He did the airplane inserts into Normandy, Market Garden stuff. Just incredible guy. And from there, somebody said you ought to start up a podcast. I thought, I don't know how you do a podcast, but I'll try. So my very first show, I called Scott, who I met at R.V. Bergen's funeral. Scott played Captain Haldane, the commanding officer for all those guys in the Pacific. So if you watch the TV show The Pacific, as a matter of fact, right behind me, if you can see that, right behind me is a signed photograph of Scott from the Pacific. Beautiful photograph I had framed. Scott came up to me, and it's funny because I witnessed this the other day when he was passing through DFW. I'm looking at Scott, and I know Scott, but I know him from the TV show. But I'm looking at him, and he came up, hey, I'm Scott Gibson. Nice to meet you. And I'm like, man, I know you from somewhere. Did we serve together? We're in the Marines, right? I mean, East Coast, West Coast of the war. And he's like, no, 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 I'm not a Marine. I played one on TV. I played Captain Haldane, R.V. Bergen's commanding officer who died in Okinawa. And I'm like, oh, man, that is awesome. And so that's how we met and we corresponded and talked and we became friends. So over the years, Scott was my very first guy that I interviewed. And it was a complete and utter disaster because it was Facebook Live. It was a split screen on Facebook Live. his internet, he was down in his man cave, and the internet service wasn't that good down there. And by the time we got him back upstairs, better server, it just was a failure. And then my next guest I had set up was Dale Dye, and then after him, Don Graves, Iwo Jima vet. So I realized, man, I got to do better than this, and so I subscribed to this thing called StreamYard, and I use that as my service. But Scott was gracious enough to come back on multiple times after that. And as a matter of fact, if you go into my show and you go to live, he was the 100th episode, and he brought on a bunch of the actors from the television show and brought them in with us. So that was really, really cool. Enjoy that. Scott, I look forward to seeing you when you come down here, and that won't be that far along. Hey, this is my cousin Chris. Chris was lives out there in Virginia. Merry Christmas, cuz. Hope you and your family doing well. I will tell my mom and dad you all said hello. You have a great one, Chris. Give the family a hug. Peter Green, Peter, Merry Christmas, brother. He's another Marine that does a lot of good stuff for veterans issues around the country. So really enjoy Peter. So somebody asked me the other day any funny Christmas stories, and I think my very first trip was on the airplane called the 727, and I was a flight engineer. So you sit sideways, and there's a co-pilot and the captain, and we're flying to Salt Lake City. And I remember we're in Dallas going to Salt Lake City, and the FO had brought all these little candy canes, the little ones. And this very attractive young girl gets on the airplane. She's got a great smile on. She has a Santa Claus hat on, and he goes, "Merry Christmas," and he hands her a candy cane. And she takes it and she goes, "Oh, thank you." And, and she looked at me and she goes, "You got a candy cane for me too?" And I go, "Yes, I do." And I reached in my pocket and I had the candy canes that were about as big as this pen, big ones. And I handed it to her and she looked at him and she goes, "Yours is bigger." He gave his candy cane back. Oh my God. I never heard the end of that from that guy. That was pretty damn funny. But it was kind of neat. That was my second Christmas on the road. My first one was in Okinawa, Japan. We went down to Hong Kong. 1994. Spent Christmas in Hong Kong. It was still owned by the Brits, so that was a fantastic time. Really enjoyed that. And then flying out of Salt Lake City that next morning that was Christmas Eve. Next morning, Christmas Day. Christmas Eve, it was snowing. I just remember fresh snow on the ground. Salt Lake City downtown's just beautiful, immaculate, clean, and the sound of our feet as we're crunching through the snow. And we're actually found a place to go get some a drink and something to eat. And as we were leaving, we heard the singing, and it was the Tabernacle Choir. And we found the church, led us to the sound, led us to the church, and it was the Mormon Tabernacle Choir up there singing. It was the most beautiful, majestic. Imagine the white snow everywhere, and then all that Christmas music. If you weren't moved by that, it was very moving. And that was an incredible memory. And then flying out that next morning on Christmas Day, it was an early flight. And as you take off out of Salt Lake City, you have mountains on either side of you, and we're climbing up, and the mountain to the left, it's you're low when you lift off, you're climbing out, all the Christmas lights on all the houses, just beautiful. And then as we got higher and higher and higher, the sun was starting to come up in the east, but you had this big giant mountain in between you and that view. But as you got higher, the light, it started out with the yellows and then the oranges and then majestic reds, and it was a beautiful sight that I remember quite well. And then here we go. This segue right in here. Desi Rosado. Desi, my friend, fellow Marine, Christmas of Desi, what was it, 2006. So I got back from Iraq in February of 2006, and I picked up a trip on December 23rd, flew to DC, spent the night, grabbed a captain, Christmas Eve, flew DCA to Dallas, and then we're going to um, Belize City. And I'm standing at the counter, and up walks Desi. I haven't seen him since flight school. And he comes up and he's like, Mitch Taco Bell, what's going on, dude? And it was just so awesome to catch up with him because he had dropped out of flight school back when in 1989. I hadn't seen him since. And he became a communications officer. And then he got hired by this little small company called Qualcomm and became a very successful executive with Qualcomm. So very neat. Desi was flying down. Turns out he owns a hotel in Key Calker. So if you guys ever go to Belize, I think it's Desi. You have to correct me. The second key over called Key Calker, and Desi's like, "Hey, you and your captain jump on a puddle jumper and fly over to my key tomorrow, and then we'll go and we get these little glass bottom boats, and we'll go swim with manta rays and go have lunch, and then you can just fly back because we actually weren't leaving till like 5 o'clock on Christmas Day." And so me and Perry Brown, who's a check airman for my company, we walked a mile to the little downtown island airport, paid $50, jumped on a caravan, flew over. Desi was still hungover and asleep in the hotel. His brother picks us up. Oh, by the way, so his whole family, he bought the hotel, renovated it, and then his family all runs it. So he has a room reserved for himself. It's kind of cool. And his brother picked us up, took us back, and we went swimming with the manta rays. Now, this was right after um, Crocodile Dundee. What's that guy's name? He got speared right in the chest by, when he swam over a stingray, a manta ray or whatever, and that tail went up and the barb got him right in the heart, and that's what killed him. It wasn't so much any poison or anything on the barb; it was just hit his heart, wrong place. Hit him anywhere else, he probably would have been fine, but it got him. He swam over it, startled it, and it went right into his heart and killed him. So when you go over the side of the boat, there were literally, you could not see, there were so many of these things just swimming in a school. And what you do is you get into the water and you slide into the water, and you would go underwater, had a mask on, you'd look up and you just see these beautiful animals swimming over top. And then you just kind of make your way up and they move around you. And it was really cool. Then we had lunch and just had a blast out there. So, Desi, thank you for making that one of the most memorable Christmases I've ever had. And God, then I had anyone from Dayton, Ohio. I had a Christmas in Dayton, Ohio, which was miserable because we got there. There was absolutely nothing open. Even the hotel, there was no food. The captain and I went to the front desk, and we gave her $5 and we got all these quarters, and we went to the vending machine, and my Christmas night was Diet Coke and chips and donuts and crap that I got from the vending machine. And that was probably up there with one of the worst. I talked to my wife, the kids are all, at the family's house. They're doing stuff. They're having great dinner. I'm stuck at a hotel. It's a glamorous job sometimes, right? But then again, you have some other times like I was looking back through time, Paris for Christmas. Now that was an awesome Christmas. Walking around the river and going down to the Latin Quarter and having dinner down there. I remember we had kebabs and stuff like that. It was fantastic. That was pretty neat. The Christmas markets and stuff. I did Christmas in London one year, I believe. Yes, I did. That was awesome. As a matter of fact, if you get a chance and you're ever over in London, go to Churchill Arms Pub, which is in Kensington Gardens. I believe Kensington Gardens. Churchill Arm Pubs is the most beautiful place. Old. It's got a picture of Winston Churchill on it. And when you walk in to the front, it's a regular pub, kind of crowded and hot. You get your beer. But when you go into the back, you walk in, you go to the back, make reservations. The best, the best Thai food I've ever had outside of Thailand. I spent 3 months there, and that food is cracking. Man, that is some of the best Thai food I've ever had. You make a reservation, you go back into the pub, you're drinking until they call your name, and then you go back and have dinner. Well, on the outside of the pub, it is completely covered in flowers and vines, and they put all the Christmas lights on it. It is spectacular. So if you have a chance, go visit Churchill Arms in Kensington. I think you guys would definitely appreciate that. Yes, thank you, Steve Irwin, Crocodile Dundee. Poor guy died. Had that needle barb right into his heart. So I think that's it for Christmas Day. The gift told kids really don't need a gift, but this is what I got from the kids, which is a Mitch Bell bobblehead. Look at that, man. Is that not awesome? So I want to thank my kids. Susan, Megan, Jake, you guys are awesome. Your dad is so proud of you for what you've done and in school. And this gift, this will go on the show right behind me somewhere. I'm going to figure out where to put my mini Mitch, and we'll think about stuff. Should we do that? Yes. Should we do this? Yes. No. So Mitch Bell mini taco bobblehead. Best damn present I think I could ever ask for. You guys got anything else for me? Let me know. I got 20 people on here, which is amazing. Do me a favor. If you this is your first time ever seeing me talk and just sitting there shooting the shit, go hit subscribe and like, and then come back. If you don't get a chance to watch the live show, go back. It's always on there, and you can catch it. Like I said, it doesn't have any commercials. Um, Another show that I want to prop is So There I Was. And if you guys haven't seen this, so there I was, two Harrier guys, Fig and oh my God, having a mind fart. There I was, two Harrier dudes sitting there telling you, interviewing folks and just telling stories. And they put me on the show, and it was one of the most fun things I've ever done because as you sit to interview somebody, first of all, it's not live, and you've got the video. It's kind of hard sometimes if you step on somebody. They just let me go, and I was telling stories. Now, I look back and I listened to the story. There was a lot of stuff that I left out, but one of them was kind of funny. It was like, so there I was over the North Atlantic, and all of a sudden we had to refuel an F-14 that was missing, and they needed gas, and they ended up blowing up and crashing into the ocean. And we had to make the executive decision: do we tell anyone about it? I mean, it was a crazy story. If you listen to it, you'll understand the twist at the end. But I did tell that one, and they liked that so much. Out of their 86 shows, that one was one of the 7 episodes that they included on their end of the year deal. And I will not. Hold on one second. I will not get off here without giving all the correct stuff because I feel like a total friggin' idiot. And so do me a favor, go look. So there I was. Podcasts. They are on Apple. They're on Aviation Podcast. They're all over the place. Repeat. Thank you very much. God, Pete and Fig and Repeat. So you guys go over there and check them out. I think you really enjoy their podcast. They have a lot of jet guys, but they also have a lot of different guys. Hell, they had me on. I'm a C-130 puke. But check that out. I think you will get a kick out of some of the adventures that they post on their show. Who else? There's somebody else I wanted to say I really enjoyed their stuff. Anyway, Sean Ryan, if you guys, anyone knows Sean Ryan, tell him that I want to talk to him. Just shoot the shit for 15 minutes. I love that guy. Very good interviewer. And that's about it. You guys, Merry Christmas. May you have a blessed new year. As I was talking about earlier, we all have friends who are suffering from different ailments, whether it be from cancer to having a hip replaced, knee replaced, or they're down with a um, just a horrible ailment. So I wish you guys nothing but health this new year. I don't wish you winning the lotto or making a ton of money. I want you guys to have good health because you know what? You could have millions and millions of dollars, but if you don't have your health, you got nothing. So that's all I wish. I wish you guys to have a great year with good health for you and your family. And if you have a chance, check out Heater's Deal. We're going to do an interview with him because I believe he has some treatment coming up, and we'll have a update with him on his evolution of what's going on with his cancer stuff, which is very, very unfortunate. Um, Other than that, like I said, mitch.taco.bell@gmail.com. Send me an email. Let me know what you think of the show, anything I can do better, anyone you want me to interview. So until next year, guys, I think we'll take it off and I will, because I know I'm flying on the 1st. So if anybody's going, I think San Antonio or Austin, I'll be flying it. I will see you guys next year. Adios, hasta luego, sa wiedersehen, tschüss, shesheni, au revoir, domarigato gozaimasu, tano shinde kudasai, ciao, arrivederci, tashakur, do vidjenia, das vidania. I'll see you guys next year. Let's see, what should I end the show with this time? I think I'm going to end it with this.